to you by Puffin.
Tidemagic, Ista Flit and the Impossible Key. Written and read by me, Clare Harlow. To Jane Hall, who showed me that art is made stitch by stitch, as well as in bursts of glorious wildness. And to Ed, always. Chapter 1. The Door. Ista Flit stood with her left foot in the city she had just begun to think of as home, and her right foot in a patch of shadow belonging to somewhere else entirely, somewhere that smelt of wet soil and witch hazel and pine. A forest, overlooked by a gauzy pre-dawn sky. Impossible, part of her insisted. Well, it was almost dawn. The kitchen door, however, a door she had used without incident every day since Pa's disappearance had brought her to Shelwich almost 3.5 moons ago, should have opened onto the narrow street that ran behind the fabulous Fletwin restaurant. She should have been looking at the wood store and the mailbox, and the moss-covered stone trough where Padley and Giddon had planted bulbs that they said would sprout into crocuses when the weather grew warmer. But now, no street, no trace of the snow that had been dusting the city since yesterday evening. Behind her, the Fletwins' kitchen was as solid and cosy as ever, but through the doorway in front of her, unquestionably, was a forest. Rain-freckled creepers hung like garlands between white-barked silver birches, sturdy oaks and elegant pines. A carpet of fallen leaves was spread in invitation, drawing her attention to a glade a little way ahead. Fortunately, Impossible was exactly what Ista had expected. Impossible was going to help her find Pa. Finally. And yet she hesitated, leaning into the magic that whispered around her. At not quite 2 hours past low tide, most people wouldn't have been able to hear it. When it came to magic, though, Ista was not most people. She could read the tide's ebbs and flows as easily as she could sniff out the ingredients of a soup or sauce, which was to say, with almost unfailing accuracy. Over the past few days, she'd accidentally sniffed out rather a lot of trouble in her search for Pa too. Now, she felt the telltale prickle of wrongness in her stomach, and down the backs of her legs. A breeze stirred, ruffling her short brown hair. Not an ordinary breeze, but one that reached out in tendrils, tugging at her limbs as if imploring her to get a move on. Ista glanced down at the key winking up at her from the Fletwins' doormat. It was a small silver key, with nothing remarkable about it except for it being engraved with symbols that almost resembled musical notes. Well, and the fact that her using it had made a forest appear on the doorstep. Any door with a keyhole will do, Pa's message had said. The message he had hidden in his clarinet case, along with the key, where no one but Ista would discover them. Ista hadn't questioned his instructions, and she'd had no doubt that the key would work. Less than 2 days previously, she'd watched a boy called Tamlin use an almost identical key to open a doorway very like the one in which she now stood. Very like, but not the same. And this was the root of her hesitation. The doorway through which Tamlin had vanished had led to a garden, not a forest. A garden promised a house and people who might know where Pa was. The forest in front of Ista made her think of stories about travellers who took wrong turns and lost themselves among the trees. She shook off the unsettling thought. Pa wouldn't steer her wrong, he simply wouldn't. Then again, Pa hadn't come back. That fact had scuttled after her like a spider all night as she planned and packed. Pa's message had claimed that he would return in good time, that the key was just in case.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?